All right, in this video, we're gonna be going over Bellwork 8 and 9, and that is gonna be covering our note identification. Bellwork 8 has a lot on it, so I'm gonna break it down. The top portion is just for you to read. That's just a lot of really, really good information about the grand staff. The biggest thing is the middle C is written on a ledger line, which can kind of confuse some people. The ledger line is just short lines that extend the staff to keep the notes organized. So our 5 lines that we normally have in our staff, this note right here gets its own little line because it is the next line that would come down from the staff. But rather than doing a whole line across this underneath the staff, it just gives the one note that little line because it's not necessary to do the whole thing just for that one note. So that line right there is just an extra line from the staff. That is actually the only note that you're going to play in C position that gets that kind of ledger line, okay? So it actually helps you memorize it in that sense. But, so that's what ledger lines are. Sentences, this is what you need to actually copy down on your notebook paper. So you're probably going to have to, if you have room on the front page, great. And if not, you're gonna have to go to the next page. And all you're gonna be copying down is the treble clef symbol, and then lines, and then you're gonna put every good bird does fly. And then for the spaces, you're gonna put the word face. And then you're gonna put the bass clef and the bass clef symbol, then lines are good burritos don't fall apart, spaces are all cows eat grass, and we are gonna make sense of what that means right now. But that's what you're copying down on line paper. And then on staff paper, so you've already done a couple on Bellworks on staff paper, so wherever your next open spot is, you are going to copy this whole bottom portion, the grand staff. So it's gonna take up 2 lines, right? Because one is gonna be for the treble clef, one is gonna be for the bass, just like it shows here. And you're actually gonna label it as well, treble clef, bass clef, the brace. Write all 5 notes in the bass clef and write the letters. Same thing in the treble clef. That's it. It's just copying it, and that's what you're actually submitting for Bellwork number 8 is this portion. Just make sure you have these sentences written down. Those are super important. Okay, so how do we use those sentences? I'm gonna leave this right here so I can keep referencing it. But let's go over how to use this. So, if we're looking at a note identification like this, this is in the treble clef, which means it's the right hand. And that means we have our set of lines equals every good bird does fly and spaces equal face. Okay, we're only gonna work with those for now because this is the treble clef. So, how that works is, remember how we did that Bellwork just a couple Bellworks ago where you were numbering all the Bellworks starting from the bottom and going up? This is why that's so helpful. So for the lines, every good bird does fly, you're always gonna start from the very bottom line here. So every good bird does fly. Each one of those words, the first letter is the note of that line. So every, for the first line, the note would be E. The next word is good for the second line, so that would be G. The third line is bird, so we have B. Next line is does, so that would be D. And the last line is fly, which would be F. So we have every good bird does fly. Now, in the C position that you're looking at, we actually don't go above G. So the lines aren't quite as helpful, and you'll see that once we get to the bass clef note identifications that these sentences will help a lot more. But it's still really good to know this. And the reason is, when you're doing note identification, it's good to just have a couple of freebies. And so if you can memorize these sentences, that really helps you out. And then for the spaces, same exact concept, but you have to start from the very bottom space. So this would be F, and then A, and then C, and then E. So there's no fancy sentence for the spaces, it just spells out the word face. But now let's actually go and name all these notes. So the first thing you're gonna want to do when you are doing note identification for treble clef is try as soon as possible to memorize this guy right here. The note we just talked about earlier that gets its own little ledger line, that is middle C. That's the one that you're playing with your right hand thumb. And that is such a unique looking note with the line going through it that you just need to try your best to memorize it. if you know that this is C here because of the line, this right here is what we call a step, because the note goes literally from, well, this line right here up to the next note. So just like in the alphabet, we would just be going up to the next letter, that would be D. But then here, we don't have a step. The very next note would actually be on this line, and it's not, it's on a space. So this is what we call a skip. So if we were playing this, we would have C. Let me actually turn this on. We would have C, and then it would step up to D. But then this note right here is a skip, right? So this line would be the very next note, but we're not playing that next line. We're going up the note right after it, which is going to be what we call a skip. Okay? All of the music you are going to be looking at for a while in the book, and all of these note identifications are going to be using what we call those steps and skips. So C steps up to D, and then skips to F, and then steps up again. So one thing that's very important before we continue is steps equal opposite and skips equal same. What do I mean by this? When I say steps are opposite, it means this note right here is on a line. This one is technically on a space. It's kind of hard to tell, but if that line were to keep going, you'd be able to tell a lot easier that this is on a space. But this is an easier example too. Here to here is a step, and you know that not only because they look, well, because they're right next to each other, but because also this is a space, this is a line. They're going to be opposites of each other. The skips will be the same. So from this note to this note, they're both space notes. That's how you know it's a skip as well. So let's finish up this note identification. We have C, that steps up to D. And if you didn't know what this one was, now, because we're actually in the staff now, we can say, oh, well, this is a space note, and it's the first space, so this would be F. Now here, you could use your every good bird does fly to get every good, this note would be G. But also, if the notes are that close together, it's better to just try to go, okay, well, if this is F, and we're just going up one, what's the next letter in the alphabet? Okay, it's better to try to just do it in your own head. The sentences are just there to help you if you absolutely need it. Now, we go from a line down to a line. That's another skip. So rather than going from G to F, this very next note, it would be G going down to E. The tricky part about note identification and just reading music is that when the notes go up, that's a lot easier because that means we're going in alphabetical order. When the notes go down or to the left, like it's going to the left on the keyboard, but going down like this, it means we have to go backwards in the alphabet, so just be careful with that. Anyway, we have E, this steps down to D, and then here we have a skip again, so D skips up to F, or if you can't figure that out, you can use your sentence, right? The first space is F, and then here we have space, line, space, line. These are a whole bunch of steps going down, so we have F, steps down to E, steps down to D, steps down to C, okay? And the next several Bellworks are just this, but different variations of the notes, okay? So the biggest things to remember, your sentences, if you absolutely need it, try to memorize middle C. I'm gonna wait for the bell. Try to memorize middle C as fast as you can, that note that has the line through it. That should be like a freebie. And then just remember that your steps are opposite and they're right next to each other. And the skips are the same, space to space or line to line.